62-year-old LaMonte Armstrong has just been let go from prison after he was convicted or wrongly convicted of killing a woman back in the mid-90s. And then it turns out through DNA evidence that he was completely innocent. He spent the last 17 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Now, the reason why is because prosecutors deliberately withheld evidence. And the jury was misled, and some of the evidence was important. For instance, a neighbor of the murdered woman told police that she saw a strange man, not Armstrong, in the area after the killing, wearing bloody army fatigues. And also, Armstrong nearly faced the death penalty based on the testimony of 4 prison inmates, all of whom received favors from prosecutors for implicating Armstrong.
All right, so, and of those guys, the lead witness changed his story several times, saying that he felt bad, it wasn't really Armstrong. And what did prosecutors do? They hid all that information. Now think about how horrible a thing that is to do. Because you have information from witnesses saying, well, no, I made up my story. It wasn't him. And in fact, another thing that they hid was that, according to that main witness's account, he saw Armstrong do it, but it turns out it was on completely the wrong day. I mean, separated by several days. It was a clearly made up story. You hide that evidence, and you hide the evidence of another witness saying, no, I saw someone else. I can pinpoint who that is, walking away with blood. That was the guy who did it. Which, by the way, she was right. It turns out it was the guy who did it, right? We found out later who it was, and now that guy recently died in a car crash, etc.
Yeah, Christopher Cavanis was his name. Yeah,
that's the real culprit. Now, look, think about the prosecutor. He thinks, so what? I got a guy who's obviously innocent, but I got somewhat of a case that I basically bribed a couple of prisoners into being a witness for me so I could reduce their sentences. I'm gonna win! Oh, an innocent guy goes to jail. I don't know what his racial thing is. I don't know if he cares if the guy's black or not black or whatever. Who cares? I'm gonna win! Now, you think there's some chance that people will get thrown in jail for the wrong reasons in this country? Now, it doesn't mean it happens in every case, but there's this, I know it because I used to be one of these knucklehead conservatives in this field, right? When I was growing up, I grew up in a nice suburb and I didn't know any better. In my bubble, I was like, why would the cops or the prosecutors bother to frame people? I'm like, they're not going to do that. What decent human being would pretend that someone's innocent when they're not, having spent 17 years of their life in jail? Turns out, there are a lot of people who aren't decent human beings, and they do it all the time. And that's why we have to build in protections. That's why North Carolina should consider racial discrimination in death penalty cases, because apparently it happens all the time.
Isn't there also an issue with the incentive structure? Because why are prosecutors so gung-ho on, and I'm not saying all of them obviously, but in cases like this, why are they gung-ho on prosecuting and convicting innocent people? Is it because the more people they convict, the better their job review will be? What is it exactly? And if that's the case, we need to get rid of that incentive structure.
It's so important to pick decent human beings. I know it's really hard to do, right? But if you pick heartless guys who don't care about ruining people's lives so they can have just a tiny little advantage in their careers, you're going to have this happen all the time. And the most important thing is, Anna is right, overall, set up the right incentive structures. And then second of all, provide safeguards so that this happens less frequently. And by the way, I'm going to add a third element, which is to shame the people who did it. And I'm going to do that right now. Randy Carroll was the assistant district attorney in this case, and he's a horrible, horrible human being. He did not respond to requests for comment on this case because he knows that what he did was, my guess is he knows that it was terribly wrong. I don't know why he did it. I don't know if it was for a tiny political advantage or a career advantage. I don't know if it's because he's racist. I don't know. It might have nothing to do with it. The real killer was also black, by the way. And so all I know is he knew this guy didn't do it, and he ruined his life, got him called a killer. Imagine what that does to all your family and friends. They think you brutally stabbed this woman, choked her to death, etc. And you spent 17 years in prison. And by the way, Armstrong comes out and is like the greatest guy in the world. He says, I hold no hatred.
No, his quotes are amazing. He says, a little over 12 years ago, I realized how sick this guy was. I try not to hate. You accept what has happened, but you don't have to like it.
Yeah, I wouldn't accept it. I mean, I would go on a legal warpath against Randy Carroll, and I would try to destroy his career. You want to destroy my life? Well, I'm coming for you, right? And I don't mean that physically. I just mean legally. I'd go and do story after story in every single local news report, and I'd put his picture up, and I'd say, this is the guy who destroyed my life because I guess he was greedy. I guess he thought, oh my God, it'll seem slightly better for me if I convict a guy who was totally innocent. The judge who released Armstrong now said it was the biggest act of justice he has done in his career to let him go. And this Randy Carroll, despicable guy, hid that evidence. There should be some sort of legal consequence for that.
I'm happy for the guy who's being, I guess, nice about it. I've nothing to say. That's his choice. It's his life that got destroyed. But I mean, forget his career. This guy should be in prison. Randy Carroll, is that his name? He should be in prison. How many years did he do? 17? He should be in prison for 17 years. And I should have minimum 6 figures for each year that I spent in prison. It doesn't make any sense. But openly, for the system to have such holes in it that this is allowed to happen, and then for this guy to openly do it, I mean, how fast do we put people in prison over nothing? And this guy purposely ruined someone else's life. So if I go and ruin someone's life, guess what I get? Prison. I get jail time. For some reason, this guy doesn't get it. Forget ruining his career. His career means nothing. His life needs to be destroyed. He needs to spend the rest, 20 years. He needs to do life because he ruined a life. It's the same difference. What's the difference?
Now, of course, the excuses they'll have is, well, no, then you're going to mess with prosecutorial discretion, and it's a bad precedent to set, and we can't have prosecutors second-guessing themselves, and blah, blah, blah. But this is a blatant case, right? So can we at least look into obvious, blatant cases where the guy doesn't give a damn about the truth and decides, I'm going to ruin this guy's life? I mean, Jayar is right. How many stories have we done for people going away for so long for smoking a joint? Now they're handing, in some places, they're giving life sentences, if you smoked a joint in the wrong context or you did it for the 3rd time or whatever it might be. And this guy who destroyed someone's life gets to walk away. That's it. And he gets to, he's a respectable member of the community. No, he's not. He's a horrible human being.